Good morning, everybody. I'm Eugene. I'm a solution architect, and I primarily work with Power Pages and portals. I've been building portals for so many years now, and I've gone through so many product name changes that if I call it portals, I'm referring to Power Pages. So as I'm a solution architect and developer, I don't have the ability to build PowerPoint slides. So I just thought I'll build a portal. So here we go. So we're going to look at Power Pages, not so much, because some of you probably attended Nick Dorman's talk earlier today, which was really going, across the product. I really want to look at the basics, and some of the things that I'm going to present and talk about is topics that I pick up in the forums, the Power Pages forums, the questions that people ask around, how does it work, and how can I do my JavaScript in it, and where can I run, a React app inside of it, etc., etc. So let's look at those topics. But before we do that, let's just scroll here into what we're going to discuss. So again, I'm not going to go into details or cover too many topics. I just want to focus on some basic building blocks. So we're going to look at forms. How do you create a form and how they work, and how you can extend them. And then we go into lists, or views, what are lists, and how that works with forms, and to give some or add some functionality to your portal. Because ultimately that is what you're doing. You're exposing your data to an external user. They're going to interact with their data through forms and views. We're going to look a bit at Liquid. Liquid is the templating language that's used inside the portal, where you can craft templates and you can query Dataverse. And then we're going to dive into the portal API, because the portal or the Power Pages provides an API endpoint now, has been for a couple of versions that it's been out, where you can consume the data securely through an API endpoint. And recently they enabled cloud flows for portal, where you can integrate the flow similar to the way you integrate with the API, just exposing the flow securely to the portal. And that opens up a lot of sort of possibilities. And then, one of the questions I normally get is, I'm building a React app or an Angular app or a single page app. Can it work inside the portal? And the answer is yes, because it's JavaScript. The portal is HTML. It should work. So before we do that, let's just look at the architecture of the pages or the portal. Now, it's under the hood, it's a beast. It's very complex. It's very detailed. It's got load balancing built into it. You don't have to worry about any of that. You just go and configure your pages. And the configuration is data in the database or database. So it's just data. You're just configuring records, which is the metadata that drives the portal. So you've got the editor, you've got the solution explorer, and then you've got portal administration, which sits inside Dynamics or inside the model-driven app if it's directly on database. You've got your configuration, and that then generates your Power Apps page or your portal. And so that's really the architecture there. So you've got the front end, and then you've got the back end where you're configuring it, and through Dataverse, you can access virtually any connector, and you can surface that data in your portal. Then the most important thing really, before you even build or start building a portal, is to look at your authorization. What are your users? Who are your users? What do you want them to be able to do on the portal, and build from here. Build your web role, identify what tables each role will access, and what they'll be able to do with that data. Would they be able to read, write, delete, etc.? And so authorization really starts at the web role. Web role is associated to the portal user, which is a contact record in in your database. You then specify table permissions, and that's fine-grained. You can really go down into a very fine level of access control. And then further to that, you can set up page permissions. So you might have 2 roles of users in your portal, and you can then isolate sections. Let's say a normal member of the portal can only access this section, and maybe there's an administrator that can access the rest of the portal. So really the authorization is, and normally when I start building or designing a portal, we start at this level, at the authorization level, and build it up from there. Just to look how that works. So you've got web roles, again, table permissions, and then page permissions, and it all ties back to that role-based access control to the portal. All right, so this is the boring stuff. Let's go into the sort of the demo of what we want to do. All right, so now first of all, we're going to build a form. I'll show you here. It is empty at the moment. We've got a title there. We're going to build a form. And to build a form, we have a couple of options. We can build it directly in the new editor. We can dive into the new design studio, which is here. And from this design studio, you can go and add a form. So we can just go, let's say, add a form from here. I've already built a form. You can also create a form from here. So this is some of the new features that's available in. You can also start using the code pilot to build out your portal if you need help. So I've got a form already created, and we're going to look at what that form looks like in the solution itself. So there goes the form. That's fairly easy to build a form. It's a bit all over the place. There's a lot of fields on there. Let's just sync it. So syncing is important whenever you build in the editor or in the model-driven app, the management side of the portal, because that configuration needs to be synced. It runs from sort of that metadata. And so each time you make changes, you sync it or you refresh the cache, as we used to call it in the old days, and then that will reflect in your portal. I've synced now, so if I go back to this page and refresh, we should see a portal. Or maybe we won't because we're not logged in. We'll get to that in a minute. It's slow now because I've synced, so it's obviously reloading all of that metadata. So let's just go and have a look at the actual form. All right, let's just go look at the form in Dynamics or in I keep on saying dynamic. It's not dynamic. Again, old school. All right. So the form is just a standard form that you've built here in the model-driven app. We can look at the form here, and whatever field and subgrid you add on this form will surface. It will translate itself from here, and it surfaces into the portal as a portal form. We saw that form was quite busy. If we look at it like, yeah, I want to remove this stuff here. It's just too much. I'm just going to remove that tab. So let's just kill the tab, publish that. Again, if I'm syncing, it will take that form that I've now manipulated, translate that into a portal web form. Right, we can, once it's published, it will do that. So that is the form. The same form that will be in the model-driven app is now translated to the portal. And then from this editor here, let's just go and have a look at what we can do. We can edit the form directly from this new editor. And there's a lot of new features that's coming out in this, so you allow you to visually build the form. You can edit the fields, but yeah, very important, you can apply permissions. And this is where that role sort of based policy or authorization comes in. So I would like to set table permissions on this form that only contacts on the contact table, and I've already created a role called the Web API user, should have access to this form or to this page. And I can now go in and look at the table permissions that underlines this table. So again, there's my table. And the contact table, I've got global access, which means I don't actually have to log in, or I can see everybody else's information. It's global. It's a bit risky, but for the demo, it's fine. And as a global access to the contact table, I can read and update and create records. All right. Let's just sync all of that stuff again. And we're jumping back into the portal. Now you see there, I don't have appropriate permissions, again, because I'm not logged in. So I'll log in and then hopefully we'll see the form surface in the portal. I'll just log in with this. This is standard. This will be deprecated. It is deprecated. It will just be removed probably at some point. And then we prefer using Azure B2C or external auth provider. I'll just log in quickly. Slot. Okay, maybe I should have built a PowerPoint. Right. Anyway, there's the form, and I've removed that details section, so it's gone now. So there's the form. I can try and save this. Captures not there. Last name is required, so I can just go and capture. I've enabled capture also as one of those properties that you can set on the form. Let's just give him a name of test, and we'll submit that. Now the record will be saved, and we can actually go look in the back end in the Dataverse, and we'll see that record. So it saves directly to contact table. Yeah.
Like standard permissions, yeah. Like for example, in AP, you wouldn't want them creating pictures on this.
Yeah, so I mean, you set that up directly. I mean, you can't any table that you expose in the portal.
Once you can just pick and customize rather than building it every single.
Yeah, you could.
So.
Yeah. Standard ones. Yeah, like the contact table standard. Is that your question? Yeah. Yeah, you have to apply permissions for everything on the portal. Yeah, it used to be that global was default, so now the portal will enforce permissions as a minimum on the table.
So I mean, you had like a lookup table.
Yeah.
So I could stuff the list time, and then no one said you're used to it because you're the that time.
Yeah.
Great, and then you just go, oh God,
Yeah.
always forget to go back in and get that.
Yeah, before it was always there. Then you have to go and water it down. So, but now it's edit permissions is enforced.
It's like,
Yeah, it's like yeah. And I'll show you that because that was what I was going to look at. Where are we now? All right, there we go. All right, so that was the form on the editor. So let's go look at, and we looked at the form in the bottle-driven app. Let's go look at the form metadata in the Power Pages management. So you see, there's my form, and there's a lot of values that I can add and change that will affect the the appearance and the functionality of the form. So first of all, the forms mode is insert, because that form that I had on there, you could only create records. If you want to have a form that edits, then you need to change the mode here to edit or read only. There's table permissions is always on by default. So if I switch that off, then it's not going to enforce permissions for that form, for that table. And then there's a lot of form options. You can see the capture. I can also just remove that. So let's just remove that again. And then there's a lot of settings and metadata here that you can go and manipulate, and that will affect what your form looks like and works. And yeah, so that's that. Then there's metadata, form metadata. Now, form metadata is where you can enhance those fields and sections that's on the form. So we saw last name was required, but I also want to make the email address required. I don't necessarily want to enforce the required value in the database itself on the table. It might be only required for portal users. So we can go and add a metadata value for that field. We choose the attribute, and let's just find the email address. And I see, I can't even read. There we go, email address. And we'll just, and then we go and make it required. And as you can see, there's a lot of values here that you can set. So I'll just make that required. Save that. Yeah, and sync. Once that's done, I've logged in now. If I refresh, you should see the form again, and hopefully email address is also required. Now you can see it's required. And if I try and save it, email is required. So just put test.com. I hope it's not the real email address. All right, so that's basic form. And so a lot of the features is not available yet in this app, the portal editor, to configure your form. Therefore, you need to go into the Power Pages Management app where you can enhance and add that metadata. So the next thing we want to look at is lists. Lists, again, are views that will expose a particular view from the model-driven app. So we can go and add a view quickly here on this list page. Oh, I don't know. Add a list. Again, I've got a list already. We'll just select that one. Again, I can alter permissions, same as the form. I can again set that this list is only available for this particular user role or web role. And we can also add filters and so on. Let me sync that and go. So the functionality of lists and forms work together. So from a list, you might have an add button. Then that pops up my little form, my contact form. I can add a person in there. I can edit. I can delete from the list. Those you again have to set up from your list here. As you can see, I can select multiple views that I want to expose, and you can add custom JavaScript to the grid if you want to manipulate or inject some functionality to it, and you can add like a create button. So I've already added a create button, which means that it should give us the option. Let's refresh that. So there's my list, and all my contacts are now available. That's in the database again because the permission was global. And again, I can add from here. It just pops the form up in a little mobile form, same form that we created before, and that's great. And you can build some really powerful portals like this. Some of the portals that I've worked on. If you're applying for a passport the first time in New Zealand, that's a Power Apps portal. If you're applying for citizenship, that's a Power Apps portal. There's so many public sector portals that's built on top of this technology. It might not look like this because, again, you have full capabilities and control in the styling of this product, what it does. So that's forms, that's lists, that's boring, it's out of the box. Let's go look at what you really can do with a bit of JavaScript and Liquid and so on. Any questions up to now? Yeah.
So the database, the only data source do you have for your tables?
No, No, you used to be, was limited to that, but now with virtual entities, you can expose virtual entities to the portal. Yeah. Or use API if you want to do that.
Can you modify that form, or that modifying dynamics form at the top?
Yeah.
And when you did the metadata, you obviously were setting a field to required that may not have been required in the system. Does it work on a layered system?
Yeah, yeah. So that metadata is only for the portal form.
Yeah. So you can then, something that's not required in dynamics, you can make.
Yeah.
But if you made it required on the form in dynamics,
It will
It
be,
will be
it will be required here. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so let's go jump into some liquid. Liquid's really cool. You can do a lot with it, like hello Eugene, that's dynamic. Taken my username because I've logged in and it's just printing it out. And it has access to so many things and objects that you can use. Yeah, so there I've just put a little bit of content around what liquid is. It's a templating language, it's read only at server side. So we normally use this to create templates and layout of the pages, and then we also dynamically inject content in there. That could be content snippets, which is these content blocks of the portal that you can use, or web templates. And now we're going to execute a fetch XML query. Now it's the same query that's used to generate the list in the previous page. It's just to select all from contacts, just select 5 at a time, normal query. And you can see there's 18 records. This is also liquid. I'm using liquid to read that values from the result from the query. And we can go look at the result. You can see there's a paging cookie also there. So there's the first 5 records. So I've just created this table, HTML template that just loops through. And we'll look at the code now. But you can see there's a paging cookie. So this is what you could do with liquid. So for example, I can just say, go to the second page of my query. It re-executes the query. And there's the second list of that. So if I go page 4, we should only see 3, I think. 3 jobs over there. Yeah. So let's go have a look at how that looks. In here, let's just open it up and this is the new. I kind of like this, where you can edit in VS Code and not in the old clumsy way. I did realize that you can wipe out your stuff if you have trying to edit in both at the same time, same place. So let's go look at that liquid. All right, so I'm executing the query. We saw the query there on the page. I just printed it out, and very simple. I built an HTML table, and I've got a for loop there that loops through the result. And I'm building out a table that looks very similar to the out of the box list, but it's not going to have the functionality that the list has. And you can build really, really good and complex layout, HTML blocks, using liquid that's dynamic. All right, so I put everything here in, this is in the copy section of the page. Let's go have a look at that. There we go. No, that one. Let's go have a look at where that sits. This is where you'll create your web pages, and web pages have got content blocks. So this one, I've just added that content of the liquid in this content block of the page, the liquid page. And there it is. So this, what is here, is what you can edit also in the VS Code extension. There we go. And let's have a look there. Where did I put her? So you see there, I printed my name. Hello, Eugene, because the user object, I've logged in, so the user object is populated with basically the information that's on my contact record.
So you opened VS Code before,
yeah.
and so were you able to edit
Well, you have your cursor now.
Yeah.
But can you edit that from within VS
Yeah.
Code and it updates that rather than copying it into there?
Yeah, I can do that. I can go over there. And we can just go to something like that. And I can just save that. And it's thinking back to that record because it's just a record in the database, these blocks. I have to sync again for it to refresh. That's why Nick Dillman's podcast is called Refresh the Cache, because as a portal developer, you do this quite a few times in a day.
There's a shortcut URL you can get to as well.
Yeah.
Push button on screen.
Yeah. That there's. I'll show you. I can show you the shortcuts. All right, so that's basic Liquid. I'm not going to go too much into that. Let's look at API because that's really where this is newer features, and it allows you to build really nice, complex forms. Not just forms. You can read data from the API, so you can query the contact table or another table, and you can just really jazz up your interface. To set up the portal API is really easy. You just have to set site settings in your portal, and that's enabled. So you're setting the site settings per table, and you specify the columns that you want to enable for that table. So you can fine grain the access to that table, and then you also apply a security role, a portal role to that. Again, you just set site settings. You specify the site setting, and I'll look at those now. The table name and enable true or false, and then you can specify the fields. And there's a few other settings that you can set that will enable the API for you. Just go have a look at site settings. There. So I've enabled the contact table, all fields. Why not? Let's go for it. And also inner error. And this is in preview at the moment to read operations. Before you could only read, not read, you could create, update, and delete. So read is the new feature of the API, which I've enabled here. Let's go have a look at my code. So you securely execute the request on the API, and this is the function that you have in the portal that will allow you to request or submit on the API. It adds a token. This request verification token gets added on your request. So this is sort of like a helper function that you'll have available in your portal. You can add it in a Liquid template and append that to your form, or as a JavaScript, as a web file, which I prefer, and you append that to your page, and I'll show you how I did that. And then really, it's a normal AJAX request to the API endpoint. So you can see here I'm doing a post, which would be a create on the accounts table, and I'm just going to create an account called sample account, and that's really the API at the heart of it. And I built a little demo here, like an editable subgrid. Again, taking the list to the next level. And now I want to go and change Tom Test over here. Give him a nice surname. So let's just give him a surname of Jones. And then let's update that. It's updating via the API. And I forgot to open up my tab to show you the request. Let's do that again. Let's just change this one. Something like that. Let me zoom in on that. There's the API request to the contact table. There's the record of the contact that I want to update, which is a put request. And it's the telephone field that I'm changing. And there's the payload. And then It's a put, so there's no response. But if we go look at the header, we can see that verification token has been added. So it's a secure request to the API. And that is the API, but let's go try and delete something. So entered permissions, I don't have permission to delete. If we can remember, if we go back to the table permissions, I'll just use the here in this management app. Let's go do two things. I'm going to set the permissions that I can delete, and I'm going to make the access type myself, not global. So which means I can only see records that's associated to my contact record as a user that's logged into the port. So let's just save that. Okay. Sync. Don't know how many times we're going to sync today in this session. Yeah.
So is there a difference between using column permission and that on preview read site setting?
Column permissions is, yeah, that's the new feature. So yeah, column permissions would only be on, you mean the read? Yeah, read would only give you the columns that you've got permissions for. Same as write and create, create and update, yeah. Delete obviously is not going to be affected by that. But let's just refresh this guy over here. And let's try and delete. Oh, this one in Portuguese. Gee. So I can again only see my own record because of the permission. I'm not going to delete my own record because that's going to be disastrous. Log me out of the portal. But let's just go back to look at what that entered permission has done with that fetch XML query that we had on this little page on Liquid. If you can remember, it just had the fetch XML query. Now that I've applied entity permissions, let's have a look what it does. It actually adds a filter to my query. So anything that I execute from this portal now would be the fetch XML. My list would have that filter enforced. And you can go up to about 10 levels before it starts really slowing down. So you could go and create a parent-child relationship of permissions, and it will just add those joins and filters on this query. If we go to the list, again, I should only see my own record because of the permission. I'll go change that because otherwise my other demo is not going to work. So really, we built a form using the form feature in the portal. We created a list, again, out of the box list, but then we went a step ahead and built our own lists using the Liquid query or querying the API. Same result, just different ways of doing it. There we go. Back to my API. So the API really is a nice feature, and you can actually see if you spin up some of the templates of Portal that's available in the Power Pages Studio. You can see a lot of those demo portals use the API for some of those features, which I think makes sense. So less reliant on those entity forms and more fluid and flexible of what you can do. One of the limitations of a form is it's a single entity and you can only create or update or read. So if you're building a single page application, you could use the same form for creating, updating of that record.
Eugene, there's a question in from Samuel. I tried to view the record, but it said only all members have access to the meeting recap. Is there any way to change the settings?
That's a portal question or?
That's why Benji does a much better job.
You can find the help desk. Above my pay grade. I just bought portals. I can't support it.
You're already replying.
All right, so the next one I want to look at is cloud flows. Recently out of preview. Again, very similar to API. It's exposing or you including the cloud flow to the portal, and then you can consume that from JavaScript. Again, you need a Power Automate per flow license to integrate with the Power Pages. And again, if we're looking at how do you trigger it or how do you execute it, it's really very similar to the API. It's going to get the token and it's going to add that token to the request verification header, and it's going to make a submit a post request to that flow. And then you can specify also the payload that you want to submit to that flow. And
Eugene,
yep.
can you talk about why you use a cloud flow versus a trigger in Dataverse?
Yeah, so trigger in Dataverse would be, you won't have, in the context of the portal user, how would you expose that trigger? The event, you might have a trigger that runs on creative of a record.
Yeah. And
it runs, but it's not in the context of that portal, and the portal user won't get the result of that. So you could create a record with the API or with a cloud flow, and that will also trigger the other flow, whatever that does.
Yeah.
So it's really in the context of the portal user. Things that we normally use this as well as the API, for example, is payment integration. Although there's now a payment gateway available for portal, it's using Stripe. If you're going to build portals in New Zealand, especially public sector, they use Wincage, so you're going to have to build something custom anyway, and you will have the API do a bit of interaction with that. Okay, so here's an example. Again, I created this table using Liquid, similar code that we saw before. I'm just printing out the ID of the record, and I just found a little click event to this. If I click on that, I should have added a spinner, but didn't, and it just went and load my information or the related record from that ID. So let's just go have a look at that, how that was done. From here, you can go to Cloud Flows, the integration to Cloud Flows. And I've created 3 there, but you can just go and add a new flow. And there's a trigger for Power Pages request. Right. Just search the trigger pages. There's the Power Pages connector, the trigger. So when a Power Pages calls a flow, and you can just go and specify a payload, text or Boolean or file, and so on. And then you can go from this flow, go and do whatever you need to do. It's synchronous, so you can get the request back to the user. You could also do a fire and forget sort of flow, but this is a great way now to really enhance that integration, especially an area where we normally customize portals is around document uploads. The way document gets uploaded to the portal is a bit naff and not that user-friendly. And if we're building portals that you accept documents, you want to take those documents probably through a vetting or anti-malware process before you accept that document. So you could do it from this flow. You can submit the document to the flow. from the flow, you can go to Defender. You can then go drop it in OneDrive or SharePoint or blob storage, and then compress the file or convert it from something to PDF. You can put a whole workflow on document upload from here, and then build your own custom document upload approach. Which I've done. Yeah. Inspect the element so we can see what happens when we upload the document. Let's go to the network tab. Zoom out a bit here. I'm going to upload the document. Just Jack over there. It's uploading. And you can see that my payload, there was my payload that I've updated, which was the file name and the content of the image, the base 64 of the image. And let's go actually have a look if where it ended up in. Should be OneDrive. There we go, 14 hours ago, but that was the folder. And a few seconds ago, I uploaded that file from the flow. Jack Carroll. Those who are into reading. All right, so really, I think this is, I've not really used this flow in production. It's only GA a couple of, recently, but I will be. It really opens up a lot of integration that you want to do in real time in context of that, what that user is doing. And then this is the preview section. There's Stripe, the payment integration that you can now do, which has only been out for a couple of days, actually. And then also DocuSign, which is a new feature that will be GA soon. So if you want to have DocuSign as part of your form or part of your onboarding process in the portal, you can tie it up directly. So there's a lot of new features on the integration side that's coming out. And under the hood, it's really, it will probably be flows that drives those integrations. Go back to the pages over here. Nearly done. All right, so yeah, there we go. I obviously messed up my JavaScript here. It should load the file back yet, but it didn't. So let's go have a look at SPA's single page app. There we go. So I just built a little React app. Again, this comes from a forum support that I did a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was building a React app. Can it work in the portal? Sure, it can, because I use React or Vue.js to build custom components or to extend the forms fields that you get out of the portal. So we use that all the time, and I took the chat through how to do it. And it's really easy, because we already saw that when I built the custom section in the API, where I read the values and I popped out a table and I could interact with the records with JavaScript. So if you can do it in vanilla JavaScript, you can do it in React. I'm not a React developer. I prefer Vue, but anyway, so I built a little React app, and that's really the heart of the app. I'll show you the app now, so that we look at how I built it, and also how I added it to the, where did I save it? There we go. Just open it. There we go. There's my little React app. Nothing major, just a small little app that consumes the portal API and builds up a little form. There we go. So let's go. There's a little React app. I'm not actually, let's add Tom Jones again. I've not tested this app, so let's hope it works. It should. Let's go back to the network tab and submit Tom Jones. Again, you can see we got the token. There's the token that came back. And there's the request, the payload, Tom Jones. tomojones.com and go and create this chap in the database, and we can see it's successful. So there's the little app, small amount of code, but let's go see how I added it to the page. Because here we go. We got the content section, which is that content block. And in the content block, you can add HTML, you can add JavaScript, Liquid, you can mix it all up, but it gets cumbersome and complex and it gets wild. Actually, if you've got quite a big thing going on there. So this is the only HTML that I have on the page. This is just that little read-only code block at the top. But what I did do is I just referenced two JavaScript files, chunk and main, which is the output of my React app when I built it. I added that as web files to the portal, and I'm referencing it on this page. And then to show you, I can also just add some custom JavaScript, and this is the actual React app. Chunk and main is the React library that I'm pulling in, and there's my app. And if we go look at the web file over here, let's go look at chunk over there. We can see there's chunk.js. I've added the file to this record, and if we go grab this and we go to the portal, to the home page, paste that in. What? If I put a / in there, there's React, that sort of React library that's sort of packed with Webpack. So that's the recommended way, is don't go and build JavaScript in those blocks, because you're going to forget something or forget where you put it. Build these libraries in JavaScript, add them as web files, reference them where they are needed and you'll have a much better sort of maintenance, less maintenance headaches trying to figure out where's this JavaScript, what's this JavaScript doing, or where's this, because you can get crazy wherever you use or want to use all of this. So yeah, so there's little React app. It works. So I'll respond to that query in the support, Power Pages support, if you can build React app, and the answer is yes. So really, briefly, we didn't go deep. We just looked at building a form, adding a list, and some custom approaches to do the same. Thank you.
Question?
Yeah.
What's stop? Table, Power Pages available to local users, would you say, or
Yeah.
struggle?
No. Yeah.
Do it support with a developer?
You don't need to use you don't have to go and use JavaScript and flows and things to build a powerful portal. Just using the editor, whatever the editor is, you can build a very complex portal. If you stick to that, I've got entity permissions, I've got web roles, I've got lists and forms. If you stick to that, you can build a great portal. You can change styling directly from here. Let's just go and.
Do you need to know JavaScript?
No. If you want to extend it, I would advise to have some HTML knowledge and Liquid and what you can do with that. And how you can extend, because what you get out of the box, the way the pages load, the header, the footer, that's not possibly what you want. You might want to change that for your, you might have a different style guide or a different look or UI design that you want to comply with. So a bit of HTML and then learning Liquid would be great.
So this, if you're looking at that user organization to replace form, is there any reason you couldn't split up single pages, which are replicated from your Dynamics forms, use Dynamics import builder, and then that's seamlessly integrate, right? Yeah,
you can. You got to look at the licensing of portals. So if it's internal, if they logged in the way I logged in using the Azure, just the normal AD login, then then there's no licensing because it's internal.
Yeah.
So that should be fine. Yeah, and you can build intranet portals or employee self-service portals that has been built on the